Thank you. Good evening. This is the Auburn Finance Committee for November 19th, 2025. I apologize for the delay. It's about 5:51. We had some technical issues with the go-to meeting, but we are set to start at this point. Let me read this open meeting law. Open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, dial 1-786-535-3211 and use access code 991-599-357. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. And just for members that will here, just take a quick roll call. I don't believe we have any members joining us remotely, but present with us tonight we have Michael Marshall.
Present.
Patrick Jones.
Present.
Stephen Consilio.
Present.
And Andrew Shah.
Present.
Town officials and employees that are present. We have CFO Town Accountant Karen Harnois.
Present.
Administrative Assistant Danielle Chamberlain-Roberts. Okay, we'll move right into the posted agenda. So we do not have, we just have transfers to go over. So the first ones we have are from the Department of Public Works. We do have Joanna Paquin with us on remotely. Joanna. So you have two before us today. Do you want me to read these off, or would you like to give a brief explanation as to the transfers we have before us?
Thank you. Yes, I can give a quick explanation. The first transfer that I have is into training out of wages full-time, and that's for the staff to attend a hoisting license renewal class. And the second one, it's out of the cemetery wages account into the clerical cemetery account. We have the cemetery clerk. She'll be on vacation for several weeks, so this will allow us to have somebody to fill in so that the office isn't empty and people can still come in.
Okay. Any questions from members? Mr. Jones?
So, through the chair, if we know that people are going to take vacations and we know that we're going to put someone in the seat, why wouldn't we be including the difference in the budget at the beginning of the year? Why would we be coming forward later and asking to transfer money in if we know that we're going to need to do that?
So through the chair, I can answer that. So I wasn't aware that this vacation was going to be continuous. So she's going to be traveling abroad for 4 weeks. So typically we can cover a week, with other staff, but for an extended period, it's more difficult.
Any additional questions? Did I answer your questions, Mr. Jones? Okay, we'll read these off. This one, the first one in our agenda is the 2450. So from the DPW Cemetery Division, going from the engineer GIS account, amount requested $2,450, going to the clerical account, transfers for funds to cover a replacement due to a vacation. Motion to approve? Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? And one. Okay. I have an opposition from Mr. Jones. Very good. Next one is DPW Highway Division, coming from the wages full-time account. Amount requested $2,400, going to the training account, Reason given for the transfer is a mandatory hoisting class to renew hoisting licenses. Do you have any questions specific to this one?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve?
Actually, I did get a question.
Absolutely.
Don't we have training in your budget as it is now, or, so this is over and above what you've planned for training for the year?
So through the chair, we do have training, and unfortunately, we had some, I mean, fortunately too, but we had some new employees that we needed to put through the CDL class, which is very expensive. So that depleted our budget, and we didn't have sufficient funds to cover the hoisting license training.
Then, no, I have a better answer to vote.
Okay, so we had a motion to approve the 2,400. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanna, do you have any other ones on the, Okay, very good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the next one is a transfer coming from the reserve account, salary reserve in particular. This is from DDIS Solid Waste, and it is the amount requested $46. Reason for the shortages, actually, are the remainder of these, are these largely 1% wage? Are there any that are not? I have to get to the back.
There are a couple that are the 1% plus other wage adjustments.
I guess, could you just give us just a general overview for those that may be watching, what exactly the 1% wage adjustment from the evaluations, what that entails or what that means, and why these transfers are here? That may move this
So
along.
what is budgeted for the increases for the non-union or the bylaw employees is a 2%. And then the 1% is budgeted into the salary reserve. So each year upon a successful performance evaluation, we put forward the transfers from the salary reserve into the departmental budgets. Excuse me. So that is the majority of the transfers are for the 1%. There are a few under the second category here that says they're for 1% adjustments and wage budget adjustments. And what that is that when the budget was put together, in some instances, there were some additional funds that were needed to supplement the budgets. So that's what that category is. There's a few of those. And then in the last one, which says 1% wage adjustments and other wage adjustments, in there it also includes any employees that were, so the budget was put together for fiscal '26, then employees were hired, sometimes at higher rates when they first started, so that's that category, the 1% plus other wage adjustments.
While she's on the explanation through the chair, on the very last budget, towards the end, the easier one at the end of our packet, uses the verbiage valuation. It doesn't say eval. Is that just a typo?
Yes, it is. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, it's okay. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't yet a different.
Nope, same.
Thank you.
Any other questions relative to the 1% or how they come to be, or?
My only question is whether everyone's comfortable taking essentially all of the remaining transfers as one, since they're all coming from reserve and going to various lines. Save us a decent amount of time, but I don't know if we want to discuss any of the ones that have a wage budget adjustment or other wage adjustment separately. But I am comfortable doing all of them at the same time, but I don't want to put forth a motion that anyone is opposed to.
I'd entertain a second, knowing that we could use some time to discuss any of them and move these along as one vote.
Do you want to do them based on what you said, Mr. Jones, that maybe all the ones that fall under the strictly wage adjustments? And then do
1% wage adjustment.
Yes, the sections 1, subsection 2, subsection 3.
Subsection through 25.
That might give me a chance to catch my breath between them.
Yeah.
I move that we take the 25 transfers that
First
are
25.
for the 1% wage adjustment as one for the purpose of voting.
And I second that.
If I could, just I have one additional question before we get into the 1%, so can you just, what is the evaluation process? And you said it's budgeted for up to 2, so these these employees are eligible for up to 2%? Or we're budgeted for up to 2%? Can you explain that process? And because it just seems like, it looks like we're giving an automatic 1% to,
It's, I remember this from last year. So all the bylaw employees get a 2%, like, essentially cost of living budgeted increase. And then upon the successful completion of their, like, job evaluation, they're given an additional 1% to get to 3% each year. And that's been how it's operated as long as I can remember.
okay.
I don't know
think
if
we're-
that's like, it's not a contractual thing, because these are bylaw employees, right? But it's
Correct.
how it's traditionally been handled.
I guess my question is, are there any employees that did not receive a 1% successful, or did every employee get a successful 1%?
As far as I know, there were no employees that did not get the 1%.
Okay.
But the 1% is separate from a cost of living increase, correct?
Right, so the 1% would be like a performance, and then the 2% would be the cost of
Cost of
living.
living.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second to take the subsection 1, items 1 through 25 as 1.
Or the one ending in, the one for $1,590.
So we had a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, very good. So let me read these in. So the first one from salary reserve, from DDIS solid waste, going to the solid waste DDIS director, amount requested $46. Reason given, 1% wage. I'm going to say that's going to be the reason for all these, so I'm not going to reread that. Next one coming from DPW cemetery, salary reserve account, going to the cemetery superintendent, amount requested $65. From salary reserve from fire, fire chief education stipend, amount requested $97. Will you keep track to make sure I don't go beyond the 25? Thank you. Thank you. From salary reserve, from the IT department, going to the assistant IT account, amount requested $120. From salary reserve DDS conservation, going to the conservation admin, amount requested $153. Salary reserve DDI's planning, going to planning admin, amount requested $154. Salary reserve DDIS Board of Appeals, going to the zoning Board of Appeals admin, amount requested $154. Salary reserve from Council on Aging, going to the program coordinator account, amount requested $408. Salary reserve DDIS solid waste, going to the solid waste compliance officer, amount requested $601. Salary reserve from DDIS health, going to the Board of Health inspector, amount requested $637. Salary reserve town clerk, going to the assistant clerk, amount requested $674. Salary reserve human resources, going to the HR salary account, amount requested $678. Salary reserve from assessors, going to the assistant assessor, amount requested $695. Salary reserve from DDIS inspection, going to the local inspector, amount requested $725. Salary reserve from DDIS, going to the assistant health director, amount requested $765. Salary reserve from DPW highway, going to the highway superintendent account, amount requested $836. Salary reserve from assessors, the assessor, going to the assessor salary account, amount requested $926. Salary reserve DPW engineering, going to the civil engineer account, amount requested $998. Salary reserve DPW stormwater, going to the stormwater engineer, amount requested $998. Salary reserve coming from library, going to the library director, amount requested $1,040. Salary reserve IT department, going to the IT manager, amount requested $1,051. Salary reserve DDIS Health, going to the sanitation salary, amount requested $1,141. Salary reserve finance/accounting, going to the CFO town accountant, amount requested $1,289. Salary reserve DPW engineering, going to the town engineer, amount requested $1,293. Salary reserve from fire to the fire chief, amount requested $1,590. And those are the 25 that we have in front of us at the moment. Do we have any questions on these? No questions?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, did you want a motion on the next groupings?
I guess my only question would be, are these the adjust wages budget, that's all the same reason, and it's what you said before about budgets that were adjusted because of salaries that were adjusted because of a budgeting issue in addition to the 1%?
That's correct.
And, like, can you explain what the budget issue was?
So when I went back and looked at these 5, the amount that was needed in order to satisfy the salary for the year was actually a little bit more than the 1%. So in some of the cases, it's possible that when the FY26 budget was put together, that there were maybe some changes that happened after the fact in the salaries for some of these employees. So I think that's where that factored in. Like maybe they got a little bump during the year, and then that wasn't reflected in the 26 budget.
Questions on that one?
I'm formulating it in my head. So it sounds like it was a timing issue between when numbers were actually made available, and then activity that was occurring during the time that we went through the approval process that didn't surface in time to make it into the budget.
Yes, I think that would be an appropriate explanation. You know, also in some of the cases, like this year, we're going to be very careful to make sure that we recalculate and review and check all the salaries that are submitted, all the departmental budgets. There could have been a couple of just like small clerical errors or something in these as well.
I will say, I know for the 2 assistant directors at the library, those were mid-year adjustments that were made. That weren't reflected correctly in the budget. HR generalist was that was open for a good portion of at least of last fiscal year? So,
Yes, I don't remember exactly when we brought in the generalist.
yeah, so
But I would
it may
think,
just be onboarded early or late, or, I don't know, something like that. And fire deputy, I don't know why, but I seem to remember that being adjusted at some point during the year as well. Council on Aging, I'm not sure about.
So I guess my question on these is, are these numbers that we're seeing, are they reflective of an increase in their salaries by that much money, than in that we didn't have those figures in front of us when we recommended the previous year's budget or this year's budget?
right, it would be a combination of the 1% plus the adjustments for any of the bumps in the salaries during the year.
And can you just explain to me how increases in salaries occur mid-year? Is that a Board of Selectmen's approval, or is that a
Town manager.
town manager approval?
I know the 2 library assistant directors, those were, they weren't new positions, but they were, I think, reclassified as assistant directors because they had functionally been performing those roles, but not reflected in their title and salary. I don't know about the rest, but.
Any additional questions?
You don't happen to have a breakdown of what the difference between the 1% and the extra is, do you?
I do not.
If everyone's comfortable, at least, I'll make a motion to take the next 5 transfers as one.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to take the next 5 as one. All in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Okay, so we're starting with, so from salary reserve, coming from fire, going to the fire deputy education stipend, amount requested $915. From salary reserve, human resources, going to the HR generalist, amount requested $1,779. From the salary reserve, from library, going to the assistant director admin, amount requested $2,018. Salary reserve library, going to the assistant director tech, amount requested $2,019. From salary reserve from fire, going to the fire deputy salary, amount requested $3,659. And that is our last one, thank you.
That's my fault. I thought it was council on aging, too.
Any additional questions on any of these specific? We're reviewing them all as one, but you feel free to ask a question if you have a question on a particular item.
Motion to approve?
Second.
And motion and a second to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have another 4 from one set here. Do we have,
These have some slightly different explanations. I think it might make sense to take these ones.
okay, there's only 4. Do we want to just do these individually? So we have some larger numbers
Through
there,
the
too?
chair, if I could, I do have explanations on these individual ones, so we can go through one by one.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so we'll take the next one in order. From the salary reserve account, going from the Council on Aging, going to the Council on Aging Director, amount requested $2,673.
Now, that is due to a salary adjustment to the director, granted by the town manager.
As well as their 1% for the year? Correct. Okay. Any questions on this one? Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Or any discussion? We have a motion and a...
Second.
We have a second on the end? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain, okay, 1 abstention. Okay, next one, salary, salary reserve from finance/accounting, going to the assistant town accountant, account, amount requested $2,680.
So the explanation on this is that a new assistant, a town accountant was hired in April of 2025. And this right here is a stipend for the current HR coordinator. She used to be the assistant town accountant in my office, and she has been providing assistance to the assistant town accountant on the payroll system, because it is pretty intricate to learn the new, well, it's not new to us, but for a new person to come in and learn the payroll on the Munis system. So this is some additional assistance that's being granted here, and it's in the form of a stipend of $100 a week.
Is this going forward? This is $100 a week going forward? Or is it something we've already been doing
This is something that we've actually been doing
since April?
since the beginning of the fiscal year.
Since the beginning of, since July 1st? But it wasn't something we foresaw for the budget?
Correct, because we weren't, at that time, we weren't sure, what the qualifications and the experience would be with the person that we were hiring.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess my question would be, at some point, once the new person is up to speed, this person will back away from that role?
That is
and
correct.
Stipend will,
Yep, because that's why it's only put in here through the end of December. So then we're going to reevaluate it to see if at that point we can, for the 6 months.
Motion to approve?
motion to approve? Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
And an abstention. Thank you. From salary reserve from the town manager's office, going to the town manager's salary.
So for this amount,
The amount is, I read it,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
$4,408.
sorry about that.
And now your explanation, please.
So the town manager's contract was not settled until September. In the previous contract that she had when she was interim, for, I believe it was for every 2 months that she worked, that she would receive a stipend of $3,000. So what this is this is a stipend, I believe, for the first 2 months of the fiscal year, and then it was prorated through when the contract was finally settled in September.
So
Questions?
she was interim from January through September.
Yes, so the previous one was paid in the previous budget, and this is just from July through September, when it became, her new contract became effective.
Any questions on this one?
I just have one question. Is it normal for the town manager to sign off on the town manager as the department head or officer head? I mean, I know there's nobody necessarily higher than the town manager, but,
The Board of Selectmen would be the logical choice.
yeah, it just seems odd that she would sign off on her own,
Sign our own request for the,
yeah, to me.
I suppose I could have signed it as well, because I make sure that I look it over and look at the contract and make sure that all the amounts are correct.
Not that there is any impropriety, it's just, yeah, I think, err on the side of caution would be my thought on that.
any additional questions? Motion?
Motion approved?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
And the final transfer for tonight, also from salary reserve, coming from the town manager's office. This is going to the town manager clerical account. Amount requested, $13,206. CFO, can you explain this one?
This one is a slightly substantial one. So there was a lot of change with the town manager's office when Sue and Sharon retired. And then we hired Caitlin Johnson, and then Danielle was transferred over as the assistant admin in there. So the difference between what was originally budgeted for the salaries and the salaries that we brought these employees in at. And then we're also retaining Sue and Sharon. They work part-time hours there. There's the $13,206 is the difference between all of that.
Questions on this one?
So I think I remember from last year that Dory mentioned that this, there was a lot of changeover and a lot of, obviously retirements and then new people coming in. Is this settled some of the uneasiness or the changeover, having them part-time and having, support for the new employees?
I think so. I think it's working pretty well over there. I don't know if you have any comments, Danielle, but, yeah, we have Sue or Sharon in the morning or Sue or Sharon in the afternoon, and they have a lot of institutional knowledge with them so that, we can get whatever we need from them for some historical. And then we have Katie's doing great. She brings a very good perspective to things, and when it comes to computers and that type of thing, technology, and Danielle as well.
Yeah, Katie's very skilled, and Sue and Sharon's institutional knowledge is priceless. We really value it.
Very good, thank you.
And these 25, 34 transfers that we're dealing with should keep us whole through the budget year till June 30th, right, of '26?
For the bylaw employees, that is
Right,
correct.
I realize we've talked about a couple of them being, not the full extensive of the year, but any of them that do go, this is going to wrap it all up.
That's correct, because the payroll encumbrances are recorded in the system, so this is going to bring us right through as long as there aren't any employee changes.
My only question, and it's not specific, I'm sorry.
No,
if
you're
I- not specific to this transfer, but I haven't asked it yet, so. Are there any other outstanding contracts that the salary reserve needs to cover potentially in fiscal '26? And do we know what the current balance in salary reserve is?
Well, I've been working on that, so this is the first step. And then we have, since all of the contracts were open, I'm going to be bringing all the other ones. We just settled, GEU just settled, and sewer was the last one to settle, so now they're all settled.
They're all settled. That was really my question.
Yes,
Okay.
so now I'm going to be working on bringing to you the transfers for all of those as well, because we need to cover the retros.
As a follow-up then, I guess, are we confident that the current balance in salary reserve should cover the settled contracts?
Well, I'm hoping so.
Okay.
I haven't gotten to that final point yet,
Fair enough,
but we did also put that extra 50,000 in at the town meeting, so the last time I looked at it, everything looked good.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. That takes care of our transfers for tonight. We did have some meeting minutes from March 26, 2025. Unless anybody has any specific questions or
I
comment.
think, actually, through the chair, if I
Yes,
could, I just
absolutely.
wanted to recognize that we do have to formally approve them, and I know that what I believe you say is does anybody have any changes or questions, and then we leave as is. But I think we don't actually make a motion to approve them or to submit them. And my only concern is that the whole reason for us, it sort of conflicts with the intent of putting them in the packet. So we can't put stuff in the packet that's going to then end up being, for the lack of a better word, certified into permanent record. And if we don't bless it, because these go to the clerk's office, and then they become a final document to go into. So if they supersede our board, not supersede, but if they bypass our board, to our knowledge, and then they go to the town clerk's website, and they become a final record, and somebody were to look at that, so I just think it's important to recognize the process. We don't necessarily, I would just say that I think we need to say there did a review of the minutes, and just as a point of order, a board member cannot make, unless it's a clerical change, if you were changing a name or a spelling or something, you notice that it's present and not, and members that aren't present. If you're on a board and you happen to be out that meeting, you can't change the minutes unless it's clerical. But there are other boards in town that do formally submit their minutes, and they vote to submit them. They ask, do you have a motion to accept the minutes from November 3rd or whatever, a second, and then they just make the motion. I don't think we have to motion them through, but I do think as an agenda item, we have to at least ask the question, since they're given to us for review, that are there any changes that are required? And then we can leave it at that. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion.
I don't have a strong opinion either way. I do hear other boards and committees that will actually, even the fire station building committee one that I'm on, they take a vote just like everything else to approve the meeting minutes. I don't have an issue either way.
I think we,
Okay.
go ahead. Traditionally, I think it's always just been, if there are no objections,
Right, well, that
they're
objections
accepted
meaning
as-
changes,
yeah,
right, exactly.
exactly, so.
Then they're accepted as is, but I think you have to ask the question, because people may forget to say, oh, we're at the minutes, oh yeah, I did notice this mistake.
Okay.
So that's just a statement and a pause.
Okay.
And I'm good with
I'll
that.
I'll phrase this, does anybody have any objections relative to the meeting minutes of March 26, 2025? Hearing none, we'll consider those minutes to be accepted.
Because it will go on record, if someone says they object to something, then it's got to be documented before the meeting minutes can be, it goes into the minutes of this meeting, whether that pushed through.
Move on to the next items. They were member items that were requested. First one being, Mr. Jones was looking for a debt update from the CFO town accountant.
For the chair. So I did look at the percentage of the debt to the operating budget, and it's approximately 4.38%. Now, that does include, though, the debt for sewer, which is charged back to sewer through the indirect costs.
So it's actually lower. Do you
So
know?
it's actually lower than that, which I don't know the percentage, but if you wanted me to look at it, I can.
Okay, right. Thank you. It's just important because we've got the fire station coming on, and we've talked about, some of the selectmen have talked about debt, and which makes me think that there's some other items on their plate that may, I think what helped us this year is debt came off, and you found the other liabilities that needed to be cleaned up from prior years. So we found money instead of having to borrow, which is really cool. You put money to use, or the town has put through the management of the town, yourself and the town manager and so forth, and department heads have put to use some of that found money. But it's important to recognize that we are at .438, so, anything over 5 or 6 is taking on, I would think more than what our fiscal policy dictates. Thank you.
Since you brought up fiscal is there an actual fiscal policy document?
Through the chair, it's, I found it a couple weeks ago because I was digging around. I believe if you go to the town's website, I think it's under the town accountant's page, but it's like, you have to go to like an other documents link, and then it takes you to this weird place that has a few things. And they're from 2010. I think it's 2010 or 2011 fiscal policies. They're when Ed started. They might even be older than that, honestly, because I think Ed and Julie were the ones who implemented them, and I don't remember exactly when they started.
Maybe 2012.
2012, yeah. I know there's a 2 and a 0 and then a 1.
There you go.
Somewhere in that decade.
Yeah. But, one of the things that I was actually going to bring up as a potential item for our next meeting is that the fiscal policies have certain formulas essentially for like how much we should have in free cash, reserve, and everything like that.
Stabilization.
Yeah, and based on my like very rudimentary math skills, I think that we are carrying significantly more cash than our fiscal policy would indicate that we should. But that's not, I don't want to talk about that tonight. Just as a comment, and frankly, if Steve is interested, and I'm going to blame this on him instead of me, I would love to go through the fiscal policies at some point, and I don't know that, I'd love to do it before budget season so that it's not in the middle of a meeting when we're talking about an actual budget. So I don't know if we have one. I think we have a budget kickoff coming up in December likely. But I would be very curious to sort of look at the policies and understand where we think we stand on each one for a future meeting, not tonight.
Any other questions relative to the debt update inquiry? Okay. Second one, for changes in budget format / improvements. Mr. Jones, did you want to?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to elaborate that earlier on when, not this past budget year, but I think even the one before, both the Finance Committee has asked for a little bit more detail and knowledge and insight, and I know that there was transitioning of the CFO and a lot of changes in the town management. So one of the things that came forward was that they were hoping that we were hoping that we would get much more value for our worksheets than having to ask a lot of questions, goals, and stuff like that. And I know it's been in conversation, and I'm hopeful that possibly this year you're seeing some of those requests come forward with the new budgets.
Through the chair. So yes, the town manager updated us today. We had a department head meeting. And there's going to be a couple of changes in the budget format. There's going to be year-to-date expenses column in there. And there's also going to be, year-to-date expenses and encumbrances and transfers. So the town manager is working on that with Caitlin Johnson from the office, and we're making some improvements to also how it looks on there, so that will be coming. And next week is the target to get the budget packets out to the departments, just so they can start thinking about it, putting some information together. And December 10th will be the budget kickoff meeting with the Finance Committee.
And I think along with that, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the CIP budget is part of the budget. It's its own beast, if you will, for the lack of a better word. But I'm pleased with what we have, but what I've recognized in some of the meetings is that there seem to be some departments that don't ever make it, but have, even if it's only a couple of large purchases throughout decades. So I'd like to encourage that departments like DPW, DDIS, cemetery, I don't know, there's got to be, I know sometimes we make a purchase and it ends up going through, either the town manager or something, but where we can know that a large purchase is a large purchase. And if a department has an item, whether it's a Xerox machine or it's, I'm going small here, but some large purchase that they know in 6 years that, they may need, I think it should be reflected on there so we get a larger picture. Because, we know that things change. Every time we sit down to talk about CIP, we find out that columns changed because priorities change. And that's all it's meant to be, is an instrument of this is down the road, so it's a good planning tool. So I just wanted to, while we were on the formatting and everything, just encourage that. I don't want to lose sight of the CIP, but that I hope that, some changes should come with that too, and it should be more encompassing of the whole town, and not just certain departments that have ongoing regular CIP.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yes. And I would agree, we made a couple of changes. I think there'll be more changes coming a year from now with the CIP. But we also have gone through and we've kind of like highlighted in different colors things that have changed and things that have been added. So I think it's at least a little bit easier now to see the items that there have been modifications and changes put forth from the departments. So at least a little bit of improvement for this year.
On that, I appreciate the changes and, hopefully an easier read a little bit, but I think I brought this up last year, and I would continue to urge we should get more technologically advanced than books and paper. I think a lot of these transfers tonight lead to, from the budget process being on paper, back and forth, pass, and I know you use Excel with your departments and yourself, but, in 2025, I think to have a 4-inch binder of paper that we get new, sheets every week that are changes seems a little antiquated, just in my opinion. So, again, in the process of the future, I think if we can get closer to an electronic form, it may be easier for everybody to understand.
Questions? I think we've made this ask previously. Department heads are great, and we realize there's a lot of conversations that happen behind the scenes with department heads, with yourself and the town manager. But I think department heads, in the spirit of being completely transparent for the public, I feel like they need to come up and give a presentation. The school department comes up and gives us a PowerPoint, says this is our vision for the year, this is where our changes in our budget, lie, this is, we would have liked to have got here, but in discussions with yourself and the town manager, we're here. I think they have to get up and sell their budget for the year. And, I'm not saying it has to be a 20-minute PowerPoint, but it should be, I think, a professional presentation as to why they want ultimately the taxpayers to approve X amount of dollars to be spent from tax dollars. I think we've asked about that in the past. I think there's still time as things are being put together to plant that seed, and I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I think they really, in this day and age, people want to be involved, they want to see where their monies are going, and, we get some great presentations, but for people to be able to look back and see, why is this department spending this much money? Well, we've got a whole presentation that they can watch and learn from. Anybody else?
I'd agree wholeheartedly with that sentiment. I think that is a good ask.
I don't think people can actually understand without communication. So it's just, is it just, there aren't that many opportunities for the town to actually talk to the people, and especially for department heads. So, to me, it's common sense that, everybody, we should all be on the same team and all on the same page, but you have to actually talk to each other to get there. So I would agree with Kevin that it's good to have the department heads tell us what's going on in their lives. And the townspeople, the more they know, they may have opinions to show up and make suggestions.
If I could, I think this might be a good time just to bring this up. It was brought up to me from Chief Coleman that there are several towns that instead of doing the weekly evening meetings, might put together more of a larger block of time. And I don't know whether there would be any appetite for that at all, because I think it would, it probably would be, you'd have to, adjust your schedules for it. But some towns do maybe like a weekend day, or maybe even a weekday day, which obviously would affect your schedule, so that would be kind of tough. But I just kind of wanted to put that out there just to see if there were, maybe think about it, if instead of doing like 6 or 8 weeks worth of, the Wednesday evenings, if maybe we could talk about doing maybe like bigger blocks of time, but that would be, if there would be any consideration. If not, the way we do it is fine.
Thoughts? I do, but
Personally, it would be tough for me.
I think one of the challenges we face is that we have a lot of boards and limited space, and so for instance, it would be really good for us to say to do a Monday from 4 to 7. However, we would have to do it on an off Monday when the selectmen don't have the room that we all share. And I think that, in all respect to boards, sometimes, those are the kinds of things we get in our own way, if you will. So, to be fair to the employees, they're expected to work Monday until 7 or 8 at night. It would be optimal to get them during their working time, and they could be at work, and then at a certain point during that 4-hour period, be expected to speak on behalf of their budget. But that would have to be sort of coordinated so that we're not bumping another board. So, there's the whole host of reasons why it can become complicated.
Just food for thought. I just wanted to bring it forward since it was mentioned to me. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other.
Sure.
We have moved the meetings up earlier in the day, like
Right.
starting at 5:30. I think they used to start at 6, and before that, it might have even been 6:30. And so we haven't run into the nights where everybody's got a hard stop or something like that, which has been helpful. I'll say from my perspective, I think the bigger issue for me is not doing 6 or 8 consecutive Wednesdays. We might have one meeting that goes 2.5 hours and then another that goes 45 minutes so I think from a scheduling perspective, trying to figure out how can we best sort of, if it's going to be a big budget, let's just do one. If it's going to be a small one, we can pack in a few.
yeah.
The attempt is always made, and people are available when they're available, but that's, yeah.
I agree. Danielle and I can work together to make sure that we make the best use of our time on the evenings that we have. Like maybe we don't want to do fire and police in the same night. Maybe we want to do fire in a couple of smaller departments, police another night. So we'll see that, we'll try to make it the most efficient we can.
My concern on doing like an all Saturday would be more for the department heads that, they're expected to be here at 8 in the morning and we don't hear their budget till, 3, 4 in the afternoon. I look at Ms. Coyle back there, she'd be like, we certainly would get her to the front of the line, but, for those that have to be at the end of the day, they work a hard schedule during the week to be expected to spend an entire day.
I happen to know that at least one person on this committee, I think, coaches some sports and likely has some lack of availability on weekends.
Weekends would be
I
tough.
have the same issue too. So.
Yeah, I mean, a day during the week, maybe I could take a day off from work or something with enough planning, but that, it's not ideal, but I don't mind the cadence the way we had
I
it
don't,
last
I
year.
don't mind the way it works.
Yeah.
We could put the soccer nets
I
in
get
the
to see,
hallway.
I get to
and we
see
can
Patrick,
practice.
I get to see Patrick 8 consecutive weeks. The best.
We could put soccer nets out in the hallway, and while we're having our meeting, the kids can practice going back and forth in the hallway.
We just take a 15-minute recess to coach them, and maybe what we really need is basketball hoops in here, because we don't have enough space for basketball, so.
Use the, we could finally use the stage for something, raise the hoops.
I think what's also important, to Kevin's point, is, and we'll use, if I could, your team as an example. You have a treasurer and a collector's area. A lot of finance falls underneath the accountant and the CFO, and they are department heads. And human resources sort of melds, like I can remember when Ed was the town manager, for example, Dory was the HR director, but yet at the time, we never really saw much of Dory in those HR requests. It's sort of Ed sort of came in and sort of went over all of Treasury, all of collecting, all of HR. So just to use that as an example, the treasurer and the collectors and the human resource people, and I'm sure with the DPW, there have got to be, you know, the head of this division or that division. I think, and some of those people do show up, but sometimes when the actual budget conversation comes up, only the person sort of at the head of all of that sort of steps forward. And I think what we're looking for is some feedback from the other components that are, you know, more responsible for it, because I'm sure that if something comes up in Treasury, you're going to seek information from the treasurer before you make a decision, right?
Right, so I do plan on, when we do the finance, I'll have the assessor and the treasurer collector here, and I will communicate, you know, that we'd like the HR coordinator here for HR, so, yep.
But to your point, you know, we understand that some of the conversation may have to stem from the higher department head, but these other managers play a critical role in their budgets.
If, coming back to the thing that the chief suggested, and separate from when such a meeting would take place, one of the things I've noticed is that if you watch the select board meetings and the department heads go there and they do a presentation, and then they come here and they're more or less doing the same exact presentation, which is, I'm sure, not a whole lot of fun for the person who's doing the presentation. So I don't know if there isn't actually a way where we could maybe combine some of this stuff either as a joint meeting or basically to make it easier on the department heads. And if, I don't know, procedurally, because we're not necessarily taking votes then anyway, correct? So there might be a way procedurally just to make life a little bit simpler and more efficient, as well as create more maybe cross-communication between the two boards.
Yeah, I think we would still have to have them back for the question component as we go through lines, items. But as far as the delivering their presentation, potentially, if, you know, they wanted to, but I don't know how many they would get through, again, how big a block you would need, and how often they do the,
We'll just stay till 1 in the morning.
I have a feeling it would be on us, we would end up doubling our meeting time, because we would listen to the presentation as part of the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and then have to come back for our own meetings to ask our questions. So I have a feeling, in that case, we may be creating more meeting time for ourselves than the savings for the department heads. But I thinks that's how that may come out, I'm not sure.
I suspect you're correct.
But any creative ways, you know, I mean, to make this a smoother process for all.
I mean, and I've brought this up before, that, you know, sometimes we have department heads here for doing relatively small transfers that we almost, by definition, we're going to okay. The CFO certainly can answer any questions to. And so, you know, if we're trying to make people efficient and their lives, quality of life better, and to save their capital to things that are more managerial and less, minute administrative stuff, you know, it seems to me that there's certain efficiencies we could probably find. That's all.
And I do feel that way sometimes, that we have department heads that come here, and they are relatively smaller budgets, that there aren't a lot of questions, there's not a lot of change from year to year. And I feel bad that they take their night off and then they sit there and then we don't have any questions for them, then they get up and they leave, whereas I think that's part of even that presentation component, even if they make a 2-minute presentation and say, this is who I am. I mean, sometimes I don't even, the smaller departments, I don't even know the names, I see faces out there that I don't recognize. They could introduce themselves, say, this is what my, department does, and even though it's a relatively small budget, that's, like I said, pretty consistent year to year. I think it's beneficial for all of us, but.
I mean, and on the flip side, one of the things that MMA suggests is the Finance Committee actually, the members actually get divided up and have more of a direct relationship with the department heads. So somebody is, going to the school committee meetings and, maybe has an occasional meeting with the superintendent or whatever the department is. So there's actually a little bit more cross-communication between the board, not necessarily the whole board, but somebody on the board. And so that the board can cross-talk amongst themselves about different things that are going on in the town and stuff like that. And I know that it's a common thing in some towns. I don't know if it's more for cities or for towns, but it's definitely things that go on. There's lots of different ways we can operate differently as well as other departments.
And just to go back to those presentations too, I think that allows for an opportunity, not that they want to present in contrast to what their boss, the town manager, has presented as a budget, but I think it allows them to say, should monies become available, members of the Finance Committee, this was my ultimate goal, was to get to here or to purchase this, but because what we're seeing on paper is really just what the agreement was that the town manager presented, not necessarily what that department head had asked for.
Right, yeah.
We don't see what was asked for, we don't see the original, we see what was agreed upon.
I think that's an excellent point. Again, I'm sure that the final budget that's presented is not what the original asked. It's probably not near it, so I think you ask for whatever you can and then, have that time to address why you think you needed that gap that maybe got cut out, so.
And that's, will help with sometimes, and Patrick, you're very good at noting where we end up with some shortfalls, and then why didn't you ask for more money, the training one you brought up tonight, those department heads may come to us and say, well, I wanted X number of dollars in the training account, but we agreed upon this dollar amount, so when we see it at the end of the year, we go, okay, maybe there was some, the department head really sort of knew what they were envisioning, and we can look towards the future to say, okay, we understand why you really wanted it back at the beginning.
Right, when you asked for it.
Yeah.
Your crystal ball was right, and you were, at the end of the year, we probably should have,
We should have listened to you. Yeah,
Since
fair enough.
we're technically in the changes in budget format improvements item on the agenda, so there is a column, at least in the old version, for department request. We typically vote on the town manager recommendation. It has been stated openly, and I don't think it's a secret, that often the department request that is listed in that document is not the initial department request, it's the negotiated department request, and that's why so often our town manager recommendation and our department requests are exactly the same. Dory's not here, so I won't ask you to speak on her behalf, but if it is possible to have the department request be the actual department request and not the department request after
They had a conversation.
days, weeks, months of negotiation, I think that would be helpful.
Through the chair, if I could, that's actually what we're working on now. So we're encouraging the departments, put in what you actually
Right.
feel that you need to request, and that column should stay that way. And I know in the past there have been some changes, but we're working on that as well, so that's a departmental request, so you can see if
I
someone...
understand the desire to sort of present a unified front and make it seem like we're not short shrifting different departments or something like that, but at the end of the day, I think that's the question, is if Chief Coleman is not shy about telling us how many positions he wants, but I am sure that there are other department heads who have holes in their department that they would like to fill, and we don't know, because the department request that's ultimately reflected on the document that we get is the request post-conversation, and yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
and I think it's okay to have those conversations before they go out to say,
Yeah.
we're staying as a municipality, we're staying at this, within these guidelines, and bring your budget back within these guidelines. So they're not wildly like, I want to ask for a new building, and I want to ask for, okay, that's not realistic.
Town assessor wants a Jaguar for driving.
I wouldn't put it past him. Just kidding. I'm going to get in trouble now.
Assessor wouldn't want to
I know, right?
But, they know what the rules are, and, they come a little above or below, and,
I hear exactly what you're saying, and that's what we've even said in our capital budgets when we've been reviewing it. We want the departments to put in what they feel that they need. And then if we, in that column, then if we need to cut back anything or whatever, then there'll be the town manager recommendations. And then we can discuss the differences.
I think if I could, through the chair, just to sort of bring one thought that summarizes all of this that comes to mind, is that by getting all of that knowledge, what we as a board will have a capability of doing and what we're structured to do, and for part of the primary reason we're here, is because once we get that kind of feedback from all the department heads, we may have the ability, looking at the whole picture, being separated from it, to say, this was sort of a really good idea that came up through fire and police, but now we're budget analysts, right? We're reviewing the budget. So then we start to hear this other feedback, and then we have the ability, having all of the data in front of us, to be able to say, you know what, if we took a chunk from the treasurer's office and we took a chunk from DDIS and we took, this would make a lot of sense. And I think this is part of something that maybe when you're in your individual seats, that maybe you might not necessarily, because you're biased because of your priorities, you're biased because of the amount of money that you're, let's face it, right now we're dealing with what's going to be some difficult years in front of us. And so we already realized it a couple of years ago, Auburn is in for some difficult budget years. And so as a result of that, I think the more information we have, I would think an expectation of this board is to make the most of what money you have and have the best return to the town. And we can't do that unless we have knowledge beyond just the people that are presenting the budget, or to Michael, Michael's point, the end result that, the town manager is presented after they've totally annihilated or broken down the budget, because usually the number is lower. Usually the number that comes in is lower than what the department has asked for. So.
that was it on the budget improvements. So the third, we've done a lot of discussion here, and I don't know if we've sort of covered it in the
No, we didn't touch C at all, because,
C, okay, so breakout of the FY '26 fixed and discretionary
well,
spend.
it was also contractual. There was a word missing. It was a breakout of the fiscal year '26 fixed and contractual and discretionary spending. And by an example of that, a fixed cost would be a utility, something that we have contract. Contract was more payroll, bylaw payroll versus contractual union payroll or contractual obligations, because those go up, and then discretionary spending. So I envision it being somewhere around 85% of 100% of our budget. So I expect 50 of it to be contractual, maybe another 30 to be fixed, and then maybe another 20 or 15% to be discretionary. So I'm just curious how close I was.
I just wanted to update the board that this was an item that I haven't had a chance to look at yet, but it's still on the radar, and will
But you
be brought
understand now a little
forward.
bit more. It
Yes, I
should
do.
read fixed, contractual, discretionary. Because the point I want to make to the board is that when you have a fixed contract, when we have a utility and those go every so many years, you're going to have to renew that, and chances are you're going to have to go in and get a new contract. You're either going to have to shop for it through procurement, or you're going to have to work with the contract you have, and it's going to go up. So the whole point is to say that of the millions of dollars that we spend, most of it is already spent before we even sit down for budget season. And that's something that I think has to be recognized as part of the whole budget. I think when times get really tough, your discretionary spending becomes very de minimis.
So you're talking like a general ledger.
No, just not
Just
really
say-
a P&L, really. I'm looking at a P&L, not so much the whole ledger. I'm looking at a P&L, just the portion of the expenses that are fixed which are usually your utilities and stuff like that, then your contractual and your discretionary. Discretionary can actually include debt, because debt is somewhat discretionary, isn't it? We have a ceiling of what we try to stay within, but as we free up debt, it gives us a discretionary ability to know where to spend it. So you can even put debt not included in it, but as a separate item, because we already know what that value is. But that was more the point, is to send home the example that when we sit down at budget season, there's only so much room to work with, and that's what makes our job very difficult, is having to say, and question all this stuff. So thank you for getting us the feedback that you did.
You're welcome. And I'll be bringing back some additional.
Any other questions while we're on that topic? And Karen really hasn't been able to report, so we should get back to us and put it on for another meeting to discuss those, or get it to us, get the information to us, or what?
Yeah, probably within a couple of future meetings, because it's going to get a little tight with trying to put together the budget.
Because you've got
But
the
while
new
I'm
budget
right,
kickoff meeting coming up, and we've got Thanksgiving, you can only get so much done. I mean, you've brought a lot to us in the last few weeks, and thank you for making us a priority. But I know that you have a budget, that you have a budget kickoff and a lot of other things you're preparing for. So I totally understand if our requests slow down.
yeah, but, as soon as I'm going to be looking at the new budget and the 26th.
You're
so
looking
I
at
will-
it now, that's why I
Right, so,
figured it was the
right.
perfect time to ask, to categorize some of this so we understand where it falls. Because, we'll be talking about 4 or 5 contractual things. Somebody comes in with their budget, and, now we've shifted because it's all it's all utilities and stuff like that. And we have to be reminded that some utilities go across the spectrum that all departments share, and other discretionary or contractual, I don't want to say contractual, other fixed costs are not shared amongst departments. They stay within the departments.
The next item is a board vote on FY 2026 meeting schedule. I know Patrick had brought up the concept, and I think we liked it to have, like the other boards and committees in town, have more of a regular meeting schedule, obviously knowing that during budget season that we would have to add additional meetings in there to get all of our stuff accomplished, but so that we can plan to pick a sort of a regular date. Danielle, I know you have some notes on our copy. Did you want to sort of report back on what you thought availability was based on room availability and?
Sure. So the only other board or committee that's meeting on Wednesday nights is Conservation Commission. So they meet in Conference Room 1, which was formerly the Planning Board room, so this room is always free. And they are the second and fourth week of every month. So really, seems like you've got a lot of options.
Do we want to meet on the third one, since we wouldn't be conflicting with the sound? I'm not putting that up as a motion, I'm just putting it in there for discussion. So we'd have the building to ourselves if we would pick the third, but if we have put on the second, we'd have to share it.
Which may make it easier for, and I don't know, it sounded like the cable television folks were spread thin tonight with multiple meetings across town, so maybe that is beneficial to them as well, that they wouldn't be trying to run 2 meetings at the same time. I'm not sure how that goes, but,
Oh, that's true. So does the school committee meet on the second and fourth Wednesday?
I was specifically thinking about this building.
Yeah. No, but Mike brings up an interesting point, that we also are televised, and we have to try not to be taxing on the cable people.
Right.
Or we don't want to be taxing if we don't have to be.
Through the chair, if I could, I did mention at the department head meeting today that the committee was considering doing a third, or, yes, the Wednesdays on the second or third week. And I also told them, encouraged them, since they would know that, to bring their plan to bring their transfers, sooner rather than later, so we don't keep getting some of these late transfers coming in, so you have more time to look through the packet, look through the transfers, and come up with any questions that you have.
Is there anything on your end in terms of transfers that makes, accounts payables or things easier to ensure, the second Monday would be better because that would allow me to encumber the money and get, payment? Is there anything that benefits your folks relative to timing, or whether it's an earlier in the month meeting or a later in the month meeting?
No, I don't think so. So it's really up to what the committee would like to see. I don't know if you
Looks
want us to
like-
check into when the school committee meets, or,
It looks like school committee meets on the first and third Wednesdays. They're
Yeah.
not in this building, but it's
So if we're
first and
not
third.
conflicting with the conservation, we're going to be conflicting with...
I don't think, I know that we're probably not supposed to do this, but does conservation film their meetings? Yes. They do? Okay.
So if it says on here ideally the second or third Wednesday of the month, and you said school committee is the first and third, so
That's what the
Yeah, school
proposed
committee's
dates
first
are,
and
yeah.
third, conservation
So
second and fourth.
Third,
So either way,
We're-
there's
we're-
one meeting somewhere in town every
Unless we want to
Wednesday.
meet Saturdays.
no.
At your house?
Only if there's adult beverages involved.
Karen brought up the idea first, it wasn't me.
Only if there's adult beverages involved.
I'm just thinking from, like Kevin just asked, from a, getting our workload, I would think would the third week make sense? Was the second weekend too quick? Would the third weekend make more sense?
Myself, I kind of like the third, but obviously it's whatever the committee.
Yeah, I think the third makes sense in that regard. And we're, just for clarification, since I missed the last meeting, we're talking basically July through until the beginning of budget season.
December, yeah.
Yeah, so
then you
those
would-
5 months, yeah.
Yeah, and then actually, you're also talking through June, because budget,
I was gonna say probably June
June
to
June to
November
June
would
to
be my.
November, okay, yeah.
December, we usually have a budget kickoff. We're probably not gonna do it the third week.
Yeah,
no, it's actually the 10th, yeah.
Yeah, this year it's the 10th.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah,
So that way, we would know that on the third Wednesday of every month from June until November, that we could have a possible meeting if we're needed.
if we're needed, correct?
If
Is
we're
that,
needed, we
so,
may not.
yeah, we'd still leave it up to, if there wasn't a need, we would not have a meeting. Is that, sounds good. I mean, if it's on the books, I'll be here, so.
yeah, I guess I guess that would be my question, and maybe it's towards Danielle. So if there's a meeting that there is not a need for, and it's not yet posted, are we able to not meet?
Yeah.
So you could,
I think it's the posting that triggers everything else.
Right, it is.
So we could just put on a lot of the committees have on the website, we meet on the second,
But the actual posting
Wednesday, yeah.
triggers the meeting.
but yeah, there's no, I don't think, what we say on the website does not bind us in any way, shape, or form that I think is beyond.
so if we got information
The court of
from
public
Danielle
opinion.
that there's nothing needed to be a meeting in one of those off months, she could just push it off to the,
I think from the post, because you have to post the Friday before for a Wednesday meeting?
I have to post Monday.
Monday.
48 hours before the meeting.
Okay,
So I usually post Monday by 3.
okay. Because do you think, like, just from the perspective of timing, I'm assuming the third Monday most months of a month, that people should know what they need, hopefully.
Wednesday, you mean?
Well, because the third Wednesday is when the meeting would be, but we won't know if we need the meeting until
The Monday before.
theoretically the Monday, because if we haven't received any transfers, then we just won't post, right? So does that seem reasonable?
It seems like it works, because I do usually ask that they turn in their transfers by like that Friday.
Sounds good to me.
Not earlier if they could, but if the departments know that it's the third Wednesday, I think that gives some consistency to it. And if it's not needed during the summer, like a lot of times, because we're starting the new fiscal year, if it's not needed in August and September or July, then at least August, right?
We'll meet in September for the town, probably the fall town meeting anyway, but.
Right, so
And that's
if
the
it's not
thing, there
needed
are
in,
exceptions, I had said, there's both town meetings, there's the budget season, there's the first week of July, because we have year-end transfers, and then something could come up where we just have to be called to order because a business has to be conducted, and it can't wait. And those are exception meetings.
As needed, with a preference for the third Wednesday of each month.
Yeah,
There you go.
I would
You
agree.
need some
yeah,
word crafting.
yes, as needed.
Legal clarification.
I imagine the department heads would have to realize, too, that to plan ahead a little bit, because if there's nothing on the agenda for that scheduled meeting, and potentially they're going to have to wait till a month for the next scheduled meeting, they'll plan out a little bit,
I would hope so.
opposed to just
Yeah.
coming to you and requesting, please schedule a meeting, so, which is what we wanted to get away from, the, who's available on this date, and try to pull together a meeting last minute, so.
Karen, you're the official finance committee bouncer from here on out.
So I don't think it's something we have to take a motion on, but I
move that we I move that we set regular meetings to be the third Wednesday of every month from June through November.
If we
If
feel like
needed,
we need a
if
motion, then I'll
needed.
second it, but if not, I'm,
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? We'll do the motion to, that's our preference is
Well,
to
it seems to be
schedule.
a gray area on whether we should reorganize, so I think we should set a motion so that way we have something to document.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second to
Second.
do third Wednesday of each month for a regularly scheduled finance committee meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. I'm just going to make a note that we had, on number 4, tabled items, there was a meeting minutes of April 2nd, 25, with a note that said they were not quite ready and they would have to be tabled to the next meeting. But then on the minutes section on 7, there's nothing, none listed, so the minutes that we accepted were the only minutes available for this meeting. Any other questions? I do have to say, Patrick, I like the stuff that you presented and getting it on the agenda to be able to think about and allow town administration to sort of prepare and give responses. I thought there was a lot of beneficial information that came out of that tonight, so thank you for doing that. And I guess at this point, I'll just add it, if anybody wants anything for our next meeting, or, you think of it after the meetings, it's there, we're going to have, there's a members' items sort of agenda thing, so just feel free
Yeah,
to.
well, Mike just said that the fiscal policy, so we just did add to the list.
Okay, so,
again, I don't know if it needs to be there by the 10th, given the,
He's much more stricter than I am.
me?
Kidding.
but I think that's, it's beneficial, it's beneficial as opposed to just having off-the-cuff discussions to ask that they be put on the agenda, so again, if the members of the public want to see it, they can listen to those discussions as well, so.
And I will disclose that after our meeting, at the last meeting, I did send off to, her name was right, Ann Kavanaugh, the Madam Chair of the Select Board, an email with regard to OPEB, and I believe she has moved it forward. So I don't really have anything to report, nor I don't know that the next thing will come through me, but I did take the opportunity to communicate with the Select Board, and we'll see where it goes.
And I'll just take an opportunity, so just, the vice chair and I were invited to a meeting on December 1st by the town manager, and I believe as well as the chair and the vice chair of the Board of Selectmen to discuss, it's titled as fiscal year 27 budget strategy. So we'll have that meeting. If anybody, individually wants to reach out to one of us after that point, certainly we can't, I can't send out group emails or group phone calls, would violate the open meeting law, but certainly we can discuss it at our next meeting as well, any points of discussion. We can discuss what happened at that, but, so I just wanted to let you know that meeting, we were invited to a meeting, and certainly you have questions before our next meeting, you want to reach out to one of us, or separately, both of us, we'll fill you in on what the discussion, I don't want you to think that we're going outside. We're all members of the same committee here, just in our position as chair and vice chair, we were invited. And because it's only two of us, then it's not, an open meeting law violation, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for us tonight, Karen, or?
No, I think just as a reminder for the December 10th, for the budget kickoff meeting.
Is that just finance? Or is
I think all the departments
it's gonna
attend.
be, but is it gonna be a finance committee meeting in here with us, or are the selectmen gonna be joining us? Or
It'll be
is
a
it-
finance committee
It's
meeting.
just finance, I wanted to clarify. Okay. I know Dory is stepping into her role, officially now, because of being interim is over and she settled her contract, but I just wanted to clarify, because I know she changed town meeting around, so I didn't know if the budget kickoff meeting was also gonna be altered, so.
As far as I know, it would
It's
be
just us.
with the, finance committee and the department heads.
Any other questions? Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.